Tell me, Mr. Cross. You've been around, right? You ever heard of Tai Fang? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. In general, from the look on your face, I'd say that's a pretty fair guess. Well, Tai Fang, it's not a person, Mr. Cross. It was an island. And a gorgeous isle it was, Mr. Cross. Ripe with fruit, lilies, palm fronds that lined the white sands like a veil to block all who would dare look deeper into their station. The isle rested in a certain part of the sea where the water's always warm, see. They don't suffer from the winter, at least not like we do. Not in the same way. They're abundant fishers and sailors, you know. Better than most you'd find, even in Canton. We pirates sailed for years, but the sea is in the blood of these people. And the people... Sure, they might look like any other Wu Lin, but to stand in one of their presences. Put them on a boat, lad. Put them to sea, and you never seen the like. They weren't men, Mr. Cross. It's like when the cataclysm hit, some damn sea god sprung up and plowed the ruddy island, so now all it does is birth those damn sea fairies. They're seaborn and bred, they are, lad. The men are built strong and sturdy like stone, and their voices roll like thunder. Even the winches are piss-cutting sailors, every lot of them. And they need to be. Because that isle, it only knew heaven and earth for half the year. The other half, well, typhoon season comes along then, lad. You ever felt a typhoon, Mr. Cross? Aye. Didn't you have that one? You called it the Tempest, aye? Sure. That's something of the like. But you ain't really felt a typhoon like we have, mate. No. Typhoons on the sea. Typhoons on the open ocean or on an isle. No, that's another matter altogether. You never knew it like we do. The sky, it turns furious, Mr. Cross. The sea riles up. The waves don't laugh and play like children. They snarl and bite at the hull like angry dogs. The spray of the sea doesn't soothe the soul or skin. It stings and hisses like a nest of vipers. You ain't welcome anymore on her waters, and the ocean makes that clear. The sea rises up at you, Mr. Cross, lashing at you with angry blows that can shatter stone. The heavens and the depths below open their foul jaws and dares you to stay in their presence, but not letting you flay either. No sailor worth their salt to dare sail in a typhoon season. Nay, lad, you couldn't pay me with all the silver and gold in this damnable nation. It's a death sentence, mate. I learned that lesson. Whole islands and galleons have been swallowed by the sea, including Tai Fang. Aye, lads. About 12 years ago, Tai Fang suffered its last typhoon. A monster this thing was, and the island was swallowed whole by it. The sea claimed her as her own, and we never saw that isle again. Now some say, and believe me, I'm not one to buy into superstition, mate, but some say that the island still exists. The sea just moved it somewhere far away. Or perhaps the ocean really did claim the islanders, and they've all just become merfolk. You can look at me like I'm mad if you like, mate, but the truth is that whether you believe the legends or not, it don't matter. What you need to know is that this island, Tai Fang, was loved by the sea, and then claimed by her. And that's the truth. And we thought that there wasn't no sign of this island no more, or its people, all dead and gone, or claimed by the ocean. Until we met her. Another round over here, lads. Another round! Where was I? Ah, yes. Well, Bo Yin. She just started organizing our little fleet at this point, and she was seeking expansion. But to afford more ships for the fleet, she needed money. So she started sending out ships to different corners of the world to raid and plunder for gold. And my lads and I, we were sailing awfully close to your lands, in fact. Near typhoon season it was, but I was foolish back then, so was our captain. We thought we might break ahead of the storms and do a bit of raiding on your Valkenheim shores, but, well, we were wrong about the timing, weren't we? Aye, we were very wrong indeed. Before we knew it was happening, our ship was being swept up in the deadliest squall we'd seen in years. More than once, I prayed to whatever god was listening that they'd deliver us from that hell at sea. Our skipper had fallen overboard, and the boatswain wasn't far behind him. Our sails were ripping in areas, and the mast itself was creaking from the force of the winds. We was to die that day. We was to meet the fathoms below. I could feel it in my bones, lad. But now, in the middle of the storm, we sees a dinghy. Little more than a rowboat out on the water. Now, we was having enough trouble just controlling our own flotsam to worry about that little thing. But somehow, this boat comes alongside us, and climbing up out of it onto the hull and onto the deck was none other than the prettiest wench I'd ever laid eyes on. She had on rags, but her long black hair was wild and waving with the wind like a sail. Her teeth flashed like lightning, and her features were both awe-inspiring and frightening. She was beautiful, mate, like the sea herself had walked up onto our boat. Her skin fair and silky as sea foam. Her breasts rounded like a rolling wave in her. All right, you get the picture. Getting a little hot under the collar there, Mr. Cross. How about the rest of you lads? Well, don't be ashamed, mates. We was all in the same position. Didn't matter we was about to capsize. We were just staring at this brave wench who crawled out of the ocean herself. Aye. She took charge right then and there. She grabbed one of us by the collar and started barking orders. Aye? Why'd we listen? Why aren't you listening, mate? It was hell at sea, lad, and whether she be a demon or an angel to deliver us, I didn't know, but we had no captain or boatswain to give us direction, so we damn well listened. We did what we were meant to do, mate, and that was sail a damned ship at the orders of another who knew these waters. Now, Mr. Cross, you seem a reasonable fellow. Like me. We don't bend the knee to silly myths or superstitions. There ain't no place for them in this world, am I right? All that matters are the facts, the truth right in front of us. So you best believe me when I tell you the truth in front of me that horrible day. That woman, she was the island of Taifang herself, returned from the dead. Loved by the sea she was, venerated by the wind and the rain. She was like a force of nature itself. She played with the helm like it was a part of her damned hands. And the sails seemed to wave when she laughed. Aye, she laughed, Mr. Cross. She laughed at the sea, lads. When a wave rose up to overtake us, she ran to the other side of the ship. She'd grab a line and hold on to it as if she were riding for pleasure. We were all hanging on for dear life, and this witch of the water, this sea goddess, it was as if I was staring at... Aye. You can't believe it unless you see it, lad. Her eyes were flashing blue, Mr. Cross. Dark and deep blue like the ocean herself. If you ask me, that woman was no woman at all. She was Taifang. She was a woman born from the sea and loved by her. And not one man on that ship dared question her orders. Not one. But that wasn't the end of it, mate. If that was just the end of it. No, we saw something else, mate. In the storm. Viking vessels. Some fool Vikings were caught up in the gale. What they were doing so far from shore, I got no clue. But there they were. I imagine they wasn't expecting it. Or they didn't understand the full force of the monster they were about to meet. But they were making for the harbor like their damn lives depended on it. Rowing like men possessed, and rightfully so. Just leaves them, I said. They weren't worth it. We were still fighting a damn typhoon. What was the point in raiding Viking ships for plunder when we couldn't even keep afloat without near dying? But that woman, Fan Ling, she just laughed. Laughed and ordered us onward. She turns to me and says, "Give me a sword." I wanted to laugh at her. Call her balmy. But I didn't. I just grabbed my sword and I threw it to her. Why? Mr. Cross, you haven't met her yet. When Fan Ling tells you to do something, There's just something about her that makes you want to do it. You'll understand when you meet her. In any case, I gave her my sword. She caught it. She winked at me and then ordered the crew forward. And we fell upon them Vikings with a speed I thought not possible in such a storm. She jumps off the ship and into the fray, fighting on the Viking decks. She was more deadly than any flash of lightning, swifter than an angry wind. She dodged in and out of axes and swords of the Vikings with ease, and each rocking of the boat only allowed her more mobility. While me and the Vikings were struggling for footing, while the other pirates and I were trying to maintain our balance, she was dancing. Lad, she was dancing at sea. You never saw nothing like it. I can't say I remember how it ended, lad. A Jormungandr came at me with a hammer and hit me upside the head right about here. I saw nothing after that. What a wallop of a headache I had after the fact, right? Still smarts a little. One moment, Mr. Cross. That's the stuff. As all storms do, it eventually let up. Well, I admit, I was asleep through it. I just remember waking up on the deck of the ship, looking around and seeing that the ship was out of the gale, out of the nightmare. Skies were clear as could be, seagulls were singing, and the Vikings nowhere to be found. We'd survived that storm too, and there she stood, on the bow of our ship like a conquering queen, this goddess of the sea, Fan Ling. But the ship was damaged and we were struggling to sail. Luckily for us, we met up with the Green Flag Fleet, headed by Toa, one of the other pirate captains that Bo Yin employs. Oh, aye, she's a fine wench herself, I imagine, but I don't know nearly as much about her, though I understand she's sympathetic to our troubles if you're interested. Bo Yin's been running the Green Flag Fleet ragged to reallocate resources and supplies to wage this fool's war. So I'll bet she'd side with us in the end, but we can discuss that later, I'll wager. Now, Toa managed to get our ship towed back to meet Bo Yin's Red Flag Fleet. The commander, Bo Yin, she was impressed we'd survived. But when she laid eyes on Fan Ling, I could tell. There was a flash of fear. I mate, a twinge of fear on her face. It's like when a young pup going out to his first fishing trip with his old man, realizing putting your trust and hopes in a small ship to face the mighty sea. It's a sobering moment for any man or woman to face. She was staring the sea itself in the eye, in those deep blue eyes, and I could tell, we could all tell, she was gazing at a sea witch just as potent as her. Well, we all vouched for her, of course. Said how she'd saved our lives and even come back with Viking treasures and spoils. So Bo Yin asks her what she wants. And she looks that old bitch dead in the eye and says, I'm not lying to you, Mr. Cross. She says this, to conquer the sea. You hear that, lads? It fills me up again just thinking about it. See, she didn't want any money. She didn't want no pay or status, lads. She knew what we were, what we all were. Sea dogs we are. Sea rats and pirates we be. It ain't about the money, lad, although it is nice. It ain't about sides or about soldiering or about peace and serenity like you preach. The sea is a mean temptress and a beautiful mother all at once. And she is our home, our refuge. We don't belong on land. You ever seen Fan Ling fight on land? It's graceful enough, but to see her in the sea, it's where she belongs. It's where we all belong. Bo Yin wants to fill her coffers with the pay of some fool knight. Let her, I say, but this ain't our home. This ain't where we drop anchor and settle down. Ours is the ocean, and all her terrors and plunder. And with Fan Ling leading us, with Tai Feng herself at our backs, I ain't afraid of a false queen. Aye, Bo Yin must have liked her too. Gave her the Black Flag Fleet to command, dressed her in captain garb. She wears it well too. Aye. She's enough to make a man shiver, she is. So, Mr. Cross, what do you say? Are you willing to meet my captain? Oh? Oh, you thought she was here? Nay, lad, like I said, she's the sea itself. She don't really like to be on land very long. She's waiting on her ship, on the Tai Fang. Aye, we named it after her homeland, or at least who we think she is. Thought it might be a nice gesture for her. She's waiting to meet ye, Mr. Cross. Just, between you and me, don't look too deep in her eyes. You might just drown in the mate, and from them depths, you aren't likely to swim back out of that tempest.